What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to basketball. Free agency is quite a ways away, but it's something that I haven't really thought about at this point of the season. There's not a huge point to thinking about it, but hey, if your team's out of contention at this point and you're like, hey, what's next year going to look like, right? Because I know my team's pretty much out of contention at this point in the Chicago Bulls. It's like, hey, who's going to be available in free agency? Well, today we're going to take a look at the top 30 free agents going into this year's free agency. Let's get into it. And that brings us back here to Bleacher Report. It always comes back to Bleacher Report. That's where we exist. This is where we live. But anyway, they've apparently made this little article ranking the top 30 potential 2025 NBA free agents. So obviously some of these guys might just sign and never make it to free agency. That's always a potential thing. And I find free agency to be a very interesting topic in the NBA because the way that the NBA has set up its contracts and structure is in a way that you're not really incentivized to make it to free agency anymore. I remember being a kid and being like, oh wow, free agency is when everything happens, right? Like the trades didn't happen quite as much. It was like, hey, when someone hits free agency, that's when they might move teams. But it's not really how it is anymore because you can get longer contracts if you just stay with the team where you're at. You can get more money if you can do things like that. So what often happens more so are players just go to the end of their contract, they sign with their team, and then immediately demand a trade. Or more so, they talk about it beforehand. They're like, hey, I'm not coming back, so let's do a sign and trade so I can get my money and you can at least get something. So it doesn't feel like people truly hit free agency very much anymore, and I find that kind of interesting. And so I haven't even like really thought about like, hey, who are the top free agents going into this year? Like I can think of a lot of players' contracts and tell you who it's going to be, but I think it's going to be nice to kind of look at a list to be like, hey, who's actually going to be available for teams this year? And so without further ado, let's jump into it. Number 30 is Luke Cornett. I just saw Luke Cornett body someone while I was getting my haircut at the barber shop last night. I was like, oh my goodness, Luke Cornett. So what do they all have for us here? They've got whether or not they have like full bird rights and stuff like that. Basically, the Celtics can pay him over the minimum if they want to keep him. Right now, he's on a minimum contract. I personally don't see the Celtics giving him more than a minimum. Maybe somebody else talks themselves into Luke Cornett after this season because he's kind of transformed himself. He came into the NBA as what was supposed to kind of be a spacing five, and then he wasn't very good at that. But this year, I mean, he's playing like 15, 16 minutes a game, I presume, something like that, and he's getting you 5 or 6 rebounds. He's getting you a block per game, and, is he going to do anything crazy? No, but on a contending team, he's not a bad backup big option to have. He plays his role, and that's what it is. So I'll be curious to see what the Celtics end up doing with him if they retain him. They do have a couple other center options to look at. 29, Dennis Schroeder. What's going on with the picture here? Bleacher Report, ever since it's like kind of aesthetic update, I feel like they've been making some mistakes on the page. That's prone to happen. It's not the biggest deal in the world, but I think this is kind of interesting how some of these pictures are turning out. I'm surprised to see Dennis Schroeder this low on the list already. I know on the internet we like to act purely based off whatever happened like 2 minutes ago, and that's just kind of what people's attention spans are nowadays. But let's not forget, Dennis Schroeder is a very, very good basketball player. Yes, it did not work very well in Golden State. Now he's in Detroit. We haven't seen much of it yet, so we don't really know what it's going to be there. I would have to presume it's better, but the common sense in me says he just didn't fit as well in Golden State as maybe I had hoped and some other people had hoped, and it's kind of a testament to the Warriors that they can't really adjust to certain things. But Dennis Schroeder, he can go get you buckets. You'll play good defense. You'll set some other people up. Like I think he's a good player. It says Schroeder hasn't played for every NBA teams, but it feels like it's only a matter of time before he does. Hey, hasn't played for the Bulls yet. Let's build the all point guard team. Why not? So you can come join Schroeder. You'll fit right in. But he's on a $13 million contract. I'm gonna presume, unless he has a good back half of the year, people are just gonna sit on the fact that he wasn't very good in Golden State and probably not give him that much money. It's harder to get these middle-level contracts nowadays. So if somebody needs, like if a bad team needs a starting point guard, there you go. There's your answer right there. If you're a contending team, well, he can do some things for you off the bench. So I like Dennis Schroeder a lot. I think he's a good player. Through 23 games with the Nets, he averaged 18 points, 6 assists while shooting 38% from 3. After the trade, he went to 10 points, 4 and 4, or 4.4 respectively, not shooting as well. His role is even more diminished in Detroit. Okay, he's barely been there, so let's relax a little bit. They might still be integrating him, but anyway, is what it is. Another Detroit guy. Again, someone I'm surprised to see so low on this list. How many guys are in free agency? Malik Beasley. Okay, Beasley is a shooter for hire, giving Detroit the spacing it lacked in recent seasons. Yeah, for those of you that don't watch Detroit basketball or just don't watch this channel very much, I'm really big on Malik Beasley. He's one of the better and more underrated players in the game. Detroit doesn't play him enough. Whenever they do, things tend to go well for him, and this guy shoots the shit out of the basketball. While he's not known to do much more than shoot, he's like a fine defender. Like I don't think he's a bad defender at all. 42% on high volume, 9 attempts a game this season isn't even a spike for him. Yeah, no, he's been good like throughout his career at this stuff. So I'm surprised to see Beasley this low on the list. When Detroit picked him up and the Bucks lost him, I was like, that is a huge loss for them. So kind of surprised to see him that low. But you know, is what it is. Moving on to D'Angelo Russell. Okay. Interesting. He is going to be a really intriguing name to watch in free agency. So obviously he kind of got dumped. The play hasn't been great, but you still see like the playmaking. He can navigate a lot of offenses, right? Like he can get hot. We all know that stuff. Russell is one of the most skilled ball handling guards available in free agency. I'd say in the better part of the NBA, man. This guy's really crafty, knows how to navigate pick and rolls to an extreme level of detail. But yes, on the defensive end, he's been a little bit rough. Turning 29. Wow, he's already 29. He has shown some signs of slowing down. It sure seems like that. And he was never known for his speed. Yeah. After shooting a career high, about 42% in Los Angeles with the Lakers, he's now down to about 33%. Maybe you put him in a better situation. Maybe things go better. They kind of took a lot of his ball handling duties away, which, you know, it's kind of his fault for that as well. But I'd be curious to see him on another team where he can be just more of the facilitator. We got Ty Jerome here. I'm glad that Ty Jerome's getting the respect. I'm not sure I'd put him higher than like Malik Beasley or Dennis Schroeder, but I respect that he's getting respect on this list. For the non-basketball sweats out there, which if you're on this channel and you're watching me talk about basketball, I'm going to presume you are a basketball sweat. That's not even just because you're choosing to meet with me. It's more so the fact that you're not just going to a conventional source of media to get your information. You're seeking a little bit deeper insight. So thank you. I'm glad that you're here. By the way, like, subscribe, and comment. I've responded to every single comment to my YouTube channel up to this point, and I intend to keep on doing so. And because I read a lot of marketing articles, they all tell me that I need to tell you to like the video, share the video, because it takes only 2 seconds. Just do it. Help the video out. Why not? But anyway, Ty Jerome, it's so interesting because he can go from playing like 8 minutes a night to like 25 and get them like 20 points in any given night. Jerome has benefited from his team's success, but the reserve guard has earned notice as a 43% three-point shooter, playing only about 20 minutes a game. Averaging double digits, 11 points. He's a reliable ball handler. He doesn't turn the ball over much. Obviously, he's reaching a lot of career highs and stuff right now. He doesn't always get to play a ton if they need Garland and Mitchell to play first, because it's not like he can play next to them at all, and they're always going to prioritize them because they're amazing. They're all-star level good players. But yeah, no, he's a very quality player. He's only making about a minimum right now. There's a bug on my screen. Hold on. Didn't get it. God damn it. Oh well. We'll try again later. But no. Shout out Ty Jerome, man. He's had an awesome season. I know there's some people that really want him for most improved player. I'm not sure his role is ever going to be consistent enough to get it, but he deserves to be in the conversation. Kelly Oubre. Why do I feel like I don't have a great sense as to what's happening with the Sixers at all this year? It's probably because I'm intentionally trying not to watch them at times. Like, I'm not going to lie, I wasn't too interested in watching them at the beginning of the season. And look, sometimes, like, for my company, I just do, right? Because that's part of my job. It's what I have to do. But Sixers have to be pretty low on my watch list this year. I'd have to assume. I got really into it when McCain started to heat up. But otherwise, no, hasn't been all that interesting. Like, I don't really want to watch Eric Gordon, like, try to play in the NBA at this point. Joel Embiid does upset me a little bit, as much as I hate to admit that. It is kind of annoying to watch him play right now, and it makes me sad to see Paul George kind of, like, struggling out there. So, I don't know. It hasn't been the best. But Oubre has good size for a wing, and he's a capable scorer, but his three-point shot is holding him back. He's just 28% this year. Yeah, that's rough. This might be another year where he takes a minimum and then maybe builds his value back up again. Teams need wings who can score and defend. He can do that stuff, so I like, we've seen him be a nice shooter before, so I'd like to think that we could find it again. This Sixers team is just rough right now, so We'll see. He feels like a guy that's going to bounce around, though, a little bit more. Jake LaRavia with the Kings. I have to assume the Kings are going to retain him, considering they really didn't have to give up a ton to go get him in the first place. And Jake LaRavia was one of those guys kind of hidden on the bench with Memphis. We all know how deep the Memphis bench is. They were 13, 14 people deep on this roster. And Jake LaRavia is a promising young basketball player that I'm personally very curious about. I've seen enough of the solid ball handling and change of speed, even I shouldn't even say change of speed, just like quick enough first step to where he can make things happen like with the basketball. The shooting's very intriguing. He's got good size and strength, so it's like, okay, yeah, this is an interesting young basketball player, and Sacramento picked him up. They're throwing him into the rotation a little bit. We still have to see him play a little bit more before I form an opinion on how he's fitting in there. Weird basketball team there as well, because he is never going to really get to have the basketball on that team. But overall, I'm interested in LaRavia, so I'll be curious to see what he gets in terms of salary and so on and so forth. I don't think it's going to cost a ton to get him, but I don't know. We'll see. I like Jake LaRavia. Karis LeVert, he's a free agent, huh? Karis LeVert's had a nice basketball season. He definitely benefited from the Cavaliers, because he obviously just got traded to the Hawks. The Cavs were just kind of rolling. Coach Kenny Atkinson always gets the most out of his guys. We know that, right? Like, we knew that going into the season, and it's proven to be true. Karis LeVert became nice defensive player, way better offensive player than he was before. He was finally efficient for once in his career. Things were looking very good. Again, limited games with the Hawks, so I'm just not going to speak to that very much. It's just not statistically significant at all at this point, but he can handle the rock. He can score. His defense improved this last season. Cool. He should be a guy that gets a decent chunk of change this next season as a nice spark plug off the bench for somebody. Are the Hawks going to retain him? I can't imagine they plan on doing that. It seems like the Hawks are very much just trying to eliminate salary right now, and I would not be surprised if they try to get rid of Trae Young in the offseason, as sad as that is, but, is what it is. The 6'6" wing will be 31 before next season, but he's still a capable double-digit scorer, shooting a career-best 40%. Yeah, because it's not like he's using like some extreme athleticism to create things. He's more of a crafty guy, so I'd like to think that we've still got a couple more good years of production, and Karis LeVert should be good for another 3-4 year contract. Clint Capella, another guy that probably won't be retained by the Hawks, I would presume. Clint Capella is, if you ask NBA coaches, like, who's like your favorite role player in the NBA, a lot of them will tell you Clint Capella, because he just always does exactly what he's supposed to do, and he does not waver from it. He gets rebounds, blocks shots, dunks the basketball. Every once in a while, you'll see him do like a post up and do a little sky hook or something like that, especially as he's gotten a little bit older and matured a little bit in his game. But I just love how Clint Capella plays basketball, and I use him as a reference point for a lot of like younger bigs and stuff. You guys have heard me talk about Yves Missy kind of becoming a Clint Capella type, so by the way, Yves Missy tries to dunk on everybody, and it cracks me up, because he just kind of does the thing where he reaches really high and tries to punch it on him, and he's been blocked a couple times now because people have started to figure that out. But anyway, he's young. It's going to be okay. But this guy gets a lot of rebounds, block shots, alley-oop dunk to the extreme. Great, right? Somebody's going to need this guy. Bigs are at a premium right now. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets another solid contract, because I don't know if you give it to him for more than like 2 seasons. I feel like that could be where you could kind of interest this guy. If you give him like a 2-year, $40 million contract, that might be really intriguing to him, with maybe like a team option for a third or something, just in case he's still good at that point. Because how old is he now? He's 30 at this point. Still at the age, the 30-year-old has dipped to 9 this season as minutes have slightly shrunk. Yeah, so that's why I'm saying, like, I feel like he'll still be solid for somebody. It depends on what you need and what your team looks like, obviously, because his skill set is a little bit more limited. But I don't know. I think he should be an enticing option for people. Oh, Cam Thomas. Okay, we have a restricted free agent here. So, young buck, great score. Obviously, he has been hurt, right? That's a tough thing, but Cam Thomas gets buckets. We've talked about a lot on this channel, this kind of archetype of player, right? These smaller guards that can just score like nobody's business, that we always wonder why they don't get more minutes or more of this, and it's because all they can do is put the ball in the hoop, which is an extremely valuable skill, but normally those guys kind of fill out the 8th, 9th man rotational spot. Like, you throw them in for a couple minutes, let them go get their buckets, but not long enough to mess things up. The reason Cam Thomas gets a start is, one, not a very good basketball team, but also his scoring is nuts, right? Like, he's not going out there like you could throw a Bones Highland out on the court any night, who's not on a team, mind you, right now. And I'm pretty confident if you gave him 30 minutes on a court, he's probably going to walk away with 20 points. The rest of the game, though, might be a little bit rough. Cam Thomas, you leave him out there for 30 minutes, he might walk away with 38 points because that's just how gifted of a scorer this guy is. The question's going to become, does Brooklyn really want to sign him to something? Is he going to demand like $25-ish million or something more even? It wouldn't be unheard of to think that he would want more than that. And it's not really a winning basketball style. And he's not really that starter role. He's more of a spark plug kind of guy. That's just where these guys tend to thrive more. I obviously hope different for him. I hope he develops a little bit more and we could just see a more consistent all around basketball player for him. But I don't know, somebody that needs a scorer and has the money to do so, go make it happen, right? Go make it happen. Orlando, you need someone to shoot the basketball. Why not just end up with Cam Thomas? I'm not sure that's a perfect fit, but, why not? Why not? Tyus, this is not Tyus Jones. God damn it. That is not Tyus Jones. All right. We are talking about Tyus Jones, though, despite Fred VanVleet being on the screen. Tyus Jones was a really interesting free agent signing this last season where, he went to what was presumed to be a good basketball team in the Phoenix Suns. We have since learned that is apparently not correct. And he was like, hey, you guys need a point guard? I'm a good point guard, borderline starter all around the NBA, basically a step down from a starter, if not just pure starter at this point. And he signed for a minimum, and he was like, I'll raise my value and go get more money next season. And look, he's been awesome this year. He's still kind of that point guard type role where he's shooting the ball well. He passes extremely well, gets you a ton of assists, runs the offense, doesn't make mistakes, nice defender. He's a good basketball player. The most Phoenix can pay the 28-year-old is $4.4 million, which wouldn't be difficult for most teams to beat out. Yeah, somebody's going to give him more money than that. So the Suns are probably going to lose Tyus. But hey, he's going to be valuable to somebody, so good for him. Next on the list, we got Chris Paul. Speaking of point guard, right? CP3, he signed with the Spurs this last year. Basically, hey, let me go get one more payday, right? That's what I want to do. I want to go get one more payday. Somebody's probably not going to give me a ton of money just because it's not even because he's not productive still, because Chris Paul is incredibly productive up to this point, both on the offensive and defensive side of the basketball for his age, right? And still able to contribute as a lead guard on a team. The value of him being a leader on a team is really valuable. That's why the Spurs gave him the money, right? He was like, hey, let me get one more contract. Still, despite all the good things I said, he's old and, you never know when the body just kind of crumbles, so you don't want to give him too much money, but who's going to be willing to sign this guy? Does he finally take a minimum, go join a contending team, try to compete for something? Is he going to an OKC, a Cleveland, Boston, something like that, trying to make things happen? Chris Paul in a Celtics uniform would be nuts. What kind of weird jersey number are they going to make him wear out there? I can't even imagine. Let me see a Chris Paul in number like 95 or 93, something like that. Just why the hell not? But no, Chris Paul presumably still going to be a solid contributing basketball player for another year or two. I can't imagine he's going to retire after the season. I feel like he got his last payday. Now it's let's go try to win the chip while I can still be somewhat of a role player on a team. So that's what I presume, especially now that the Spurs have De'Aaron Fox and Stephon Castle's handling the ball a little bit as well. You want Vassell to be able to develop a little bit of that. Maybe they end up with a Dylan Harper now that Wemby's out for the season, right? And presumably Fox is as well. I wouldn't be surprised if they shut Chris Paul down at some point, but maybe he just wants to hoop because he wants to hoop. But yeah, no, they're going to have other people on this roster next year, and it's most likely not going to be Chris Paul. So I'll be curious to see where he ends up. 18, another former point guard, Russell Westbrook. What a resurgence he's kind of had this season. Not like he's MVP good anymore, but he's kind of finally accepted his role, right? He joined the Nuggets team, and he was like, okay, I get it. I'm not exactly that dude anymore. I'm not going to take all these like ugly jumpers all the time and just kind of make a ton of mistakes. He still makes some mistakes and stuff. That's just who Westbrook has always been. But he's like, hey, I'm a smart basketball player. I should pass it to the best player in the world, in Nikola Jokic. And then guess what? If I just keep running, which I love to do, I'm eventually just going to have the basketball end up in my hands and I can just lay the ball up. This is pretty easy. And Jokic is like, yeah, no, it's pretty easy. Okay, I'm going to go ride a horse now. And that's I'm pretty sure that's exactly how their conversation went down. I was there. No, but no, I think he's fit in really well. Does he go somewhere outside of Denver this next year? I wouldn't advise it. I think where he's at now fits him perfectly. And I think he's a hard fit otherwise. So hopefully he can continue to be a leader for this team, be an energy guy, make some big plays, stomp on the ground a little bit, and just play off Jokic, because I know Jokic has loved playing with this guy, right? Like, it just seems like they've got an elite connection. They're both incredibly intelligent basketball players, so I think it's worth for him to stay there. How much money is he going to be worth? I don't know. He probably gets more than a minimum at this point, and I don't know. There's no compelling reason for him to opt into his contract. His minimum is this, and Denver can pay him up to $4.3 million with his rights. That feels like an appropriate contract just to stick around and try to be competitive still. So that'd be my bet for the time being. Al Horford. We got Al Horford this high on the list, huh? Nothing against Al Horford. It's just, wow. Horford will turn 39 before next season, but he's a high-character, title-winning veteran. The Celtics are heavily invested as one of the teams projected to be over the NBA's second apron still. Yep, they're just going to... That team costs so much money at this point. It's nuts. While Horford isn't going to get massive long-term contracts in free agency, the veteran could help any number of contenders. I can't imagine he's going somewhere outside of Boston, right, if he comes back. Probably just give him like a minimum or something at this point just to still be on the team, play a decent amount of minutes, and go from there. That makes sense, right? Al Horford, still high-level contributor. We've seen Al Horford for feels like 20 years now, so I don't need to spend any more time on Al Horford, but love to see him, man. I'm glad he got his chip at the end of the day. I said at the end of the day. I'm trying not to say it. I promise I am. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get better. For those of you that aren't familiar with this inside joke on the channel, somebody pointed out that I say at the end of the day a lot, and I'm trying to work it out in my vocabulary because I like to get better at things. Moving on to Q Grimes here, who suspectly got traded from Dallas. The trade made sense. It did make sense. I know some people were a little bit confused by it. They're like, Q Grimes is like, we're starting to see the Q Grimes that we saw like his rookie season again. Like, good defender, good three-point shooter, fits in well with the team. Why did they move him? It's because Caleb Martin was on a contract that was more team-friendly going forward. Q Grimes is going to need more money. They can possibly flip Martin into another star player, as they're most likely going to try to target like a KD or something like that in the offseason. But Q Grimes is now in Philly, trying to do his thing out there. He's only 24 years old. I would presume that Philly would like to retain him. This would be a good guy to have on this team next to like Maxey and McCain and stuff like that, as he can play a wing position if needed despite his size. So that said, when Grimes is in a bad situation, he has rough shooting numbers, and so far in Philadelphia he's just 33% again. It's such a small sample size. He also hit a reasonable 36% in New York. Yeah, he's got to be around good players, clearly, but he's still young, so probably still figuring some stuff out. But I guess we'll see. I think he's a valuable player, and I like his game. Moving on to Amir Coffey. This is a great one. Yeah, I forgot that Amir Coffey was going to be a free agent this year. Subtly become one of the better bench players in the NBA. Coffey has been long underrated. The 6'7" wing is putting up career numbers with the Clippers, 10 points a game on almost 43% shooting from three-point range. Can put the ball on the floor a little bit, decent defender. No complaints about the guy at all. The jump in efficiency doesn't look like a fluke. The 27-year-old hit 38% last year, and he's currently 90% from the free throw line. Coffey may not be a recognizable name, but teams covet 3-and-D wings. He's still relatively young and among the best available. Yeah, no, I think he's finally going to get his first like decent NBA contract next year. Where is he going to end up? I don't know. Yeah, honestly, what feels like what'll happen, unfortunately, is I think like a bad team is going to give him like a pretty good chunk of change just to try to win him, and then his numbers are going to drop because they're going to be like, okay, we just drafted Cooper Flagg, we need to put so let's just say I'm not even going to put a name or a team on it, but let's just say a team drafts like a Cooper Flagg or something like that, and they're like, okay, we got to put some shooters around him. Let's go give Amir Coffey like $19 million so that we for sure get him, and that'll be enough for Cooper to have success first year, and that's going to be really stupid. But hey, you heard it here first. If that ends up happening, you have to subscribe and, I don't know, give me money. That's the rules. Santi Aldama. I love Santi Aldama. Aldama is one of those dudes that I literally put on like my scouting resume, like the report that I had on him at the time, because he was a pretty underrated guy coming into the NBA, and I was like, nah, this dude's gonna be legit. Like I can tell. I remember in fantasy basketball, the year that he was a rookie, I put him on like my taxi. For those of you that don't use like Sleeper, the app, that's the app that I like to use for like fantasy. I just think it's more fun that way. You can basically like redshirt people and not have them on your roster, but just kind of save them for future seasons if you have like a dynasty league that you're in. And I picked up Aldama, and I literally nicknamed him like the future. And everyone was like, "Who the hell did you pick up?" And I'm like, "This is Santi Aldama. Dude's gonna be tough one day. Just you wait." And it's been awesome to see him develop. Like hitting from the outside, nice rebounder, scoring like 13, 14 points a game or something like that. He's probably the fourth best player on Memphis, is what I keep saying, and that's a loaded team. Aldama gives the Grizzlies a different look as a scoring big man to partner with Jaren Jackson and Zach Edey. 24-year-old is a legit 7-footer, but at 215 pounds, he's mobile enough to play the 4. He's averaging 13 points a game while shooting 38.6% from 3. The team's got a growing budget at this point, like they're noting. They should be able to pay him. I wouldn't be surprised if he's just back in Memphis on a bigger contract next year. So good for Aldama. This is going to be the thing for the Grizzlies. You got all this young talent. You got to pay him eventually. That's part of why they moved Marcus Smart. So we will see. Gershon Yabusele. I love Yabusele. I think all of us do. What a fun story it was to see him kind of like killing it for France after not making it in the NBA. And people were like, come on, somebody's got to sign this dude back to an NBA contract. He's clearly good enough. And I was one of the people that said, somebody needs to go sign this dude. Philly picked him up. And man, he's been awesome. Like he can play an interesting small ball 5-man for a lot of teams because of his rebounding skill. He can step out and hit a 3 if he needs to. Puts the ball on the floor a little bit tough-minded. Just throws himself into people. I love him. Philadelphia can only pay the scoring forward center about $3 million. Yeah, he's going to get a more significant deal elsewhere, so he's probably out. If you're any NBA team next season, you want Yabu on your team. He's one of those guys, so I'm a big fan. Dorian Finney-Smith, his contract is up. Okay, no, he has a player option. Finney-Smith may be the best available if he opts out. 3-and-D vet on the list. He's 31. Yeah, that does drop him a little bit. But again, this guy should be able to cash in on like another 2-year, like $15 to $20 million contract. I know that sounds like a lot, but that's just kind of where we're at in the NBA nowadays. So, yep, 3-and-D. That's what he does. 6'7" wing. Yeah, that he just knows how to play basketball well, right? Like, you're not going to get a ton else out of him, but you get those two skills really well at the wing position. He knows how to play with star players. That's awesome. That's going to be enough to get you money on contending teams, and that's what he's going to do. The Lakers acquired him from Brooklyn. I would presume the Lakers are really going to try to retain him as he's become a big part of their rotation. Luka loves playing with him, so that seems like a good enough reason to keep him on the team, especially because they need any defenders on the Lakers that they can get right now. Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Yes. Walker has grown into a vital role player. He has the age on his side. He's only 26, and while he's not as big as Dorian Finney-Smith, he's a strong wing defender and capable shooter, 40% from 3. Yeah, Nickeil Alexander-Walker is one of the dudes that, like, the Timberwolves basically have, like, a rotation that's, like, one of the best in the NBA. And it's, like, when him, Ant, I'm trying to think who else is supposed to be out there with this. It's Nas, Rudy, and I want to say it was like DiVincenzo when he was healthy, because they actually had some floor spacing. They could get up and down the court, and they had some versatility, and things just go better for them. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is almost certainly going to be back with the Timberwolves, just because a big reason they moved Cat was to have some cap flexibility to re-sign Naz Reid and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. So presumably he will be back. He's a very important player to this team. He makes a lot of things work. He's always a positive when him and Ants are on the court together, so it's cool to see him have a lot of success. Both him and Shea. It was great to see them. I got to see them play while they were in high school. I think I've said before, recruited one of their teammates or whatever, and he signed with me. So big fan of Na and SGA for those reasons. Just gotten to see him play for a long time, so very cool. Brook Lopez. Wow, he's a free agent now, huh? The Bucks may not be in a position to offer Lopez as much as he earned last year with a limited pool of money. He's going to turn 37 in April. Man, I've been watching Brook Lopez cook people in the NBA for a long time. Y'all remember when Brook Lopez was like a post scorer that couldn't play defense? Like, that was his game in the NBA, making all-star teams. And then all of a sudden, like, he becomes a stretch big defender, like just completely flipped his game upside down. It's so interesting. What a cool career he has. Takes up a lot of space. Yeah, big ass motherfucker. Cool, right? Shoots the ball well. Milwaukee might be the best place for him. If not, he might be topped out at hoping for another team's like mid-level. Yeah, I would presume he'll just get like a solid 2-year contract from Milwaukee. Maybe give him like 12 to 14 million or something like that for 2 seasons. It's just, you can't pay him this much anymore. Like, the production, I just have to imagine, dies off eventually. And, you know, he probably wants to stay on a contending team, so we go from there. But contract negotiations are always tough. We'll see. Josh Giddey, yes, for my Chicago Bulls. Why did they do this picture? This is It's a weird picture. The Bulls gave up Alex Caruso to get the 6'8" point guard. Giddey filled the stat sheets, 12 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists per game. He's not a dominant scorer, but that's not what the traditional point guard is meant to be. This is what I try to tell people all the time. Like, not everybody needs to be a 20-point-a-game scorer. Like, as a Bulls fan, I love Giddey as my future point guard. I think that, look, I know I make the jokes all the time that we need a team of all point guards on the team, and Giddey will just be the center of those point guards at 6'8", but in all realisticness, if we're trying to build a competitive team in Chicago, like, I'm more than comfortable having him be my point guard of the future. I'll give him $25 to $30 million a game, or a year. Next year. He does a lot of things well. He rebounds the ball well. We all know he's an elite passer. The turnovers are high at times. He's playing on a team that plays extremely fast, and he does have the ball a lot, so you tend to see that be a little bit higher because of that. But it's also just a very disorganized and dysfunctional team, so I expect that is more as well. It's not an excuse either. We want those numbers to drop. It's just I'm giving more context to things. I don't just like to say blanket statements. But like Giddey will give you the 20, 25 point games sometimes. But the 12, 13 points is where I envision him when he has other good scorers on the basketball team. I think it's a great number. Defensively, is he a great on-ball defender? No. Is he a really, really good team defender, though? One of the best we have in basketball. He's just so smart, sees everything so well. He's physical. He knows where to meet the ball, knows how to play the passing lanes, can even get up above the rim to like contest things if he needs to. I just like the versatility of him a lot. I like passing point guards, so that's where I want to stick with things. I like having him and Lonzo on one team, too. It's what helped guys like Vucevic and Levine have such amazing seasons for them. So if you're a relatively good NBA player, right, like borderline all-star type guy, and you need to kind of like revitalize your numbers to try and go get another contract, you should basically go to the Bulls. This isn't even me just trying to make a sales pitch. This is just me telling you what makes sense. Like, I don't even know who it would be. Like, let's say Randall doesn't opt into his contract for whatever reason with Minnesota, right? And he wants to go somewhere else. You should go to the Bulls. You're going to have just the table set for you all the time, and you can just go make things happen on this team, and then you can go get your payday again because everyone will be convinced that your game has changed, even though you just have elite playmakers around you at all times. So something to think about. Jonathan Kuminga. This is going to be a story to follow. The Warriors resisted sending out Kuminga in the Butler trade, which suggests he could be part of the team's long-term future, even though the Warriors don't seem to develop him or any young players whatsoever. The 22-year-old was believed to be expecting a near-max salary, which is likely more than Golden State will be willing to pay. I can't imagine anybody giving him anything close to that right now. Like, we just haven't seen that level of dominance out of him. One of the most interesting cases to keep an eye on this offseason, can Kuminga get a lucrative offer sheet, perhaps from the Nets? And if not, will he be forced to accept a solid but not outrageous contract from the Warriors? That feels more likely. I can't imagine Brooklyn wanting to tie themselves into Jonathan Kuminga, considering they're hoping to get a Cooper Flagg or an Ace Bailey or something like that. It's just, I don't, like, I like Kuminga. I'm not seeing any growth in his game. I know we're seeing some slightly higher scoring outputs, but we're not seeing like anything new on the basketball court. He's just getting more minutes and he touches the ball more. So I don't necessarily see a star player here. I see a very talented player that I'd love the chance to develop, but I'm a little bit concerned about it. Maybe for his own good, it'd be good for him to go somewhere else, but I don't know. I don't know where that is. Julius Randle, speak of the devil. Yeah, what's going to happen with this guy this year? He's got a player option. I'd have to imagine nobody's going to give him a lot more because the narrative is so much so that he just kind of hurts the Timberwolves right now, despite like some positive box score stats. So I'd have to imagine he opts back in next year. Minnesota's obviously trying to recalibrate their finances. Maybe they tell him to get lost. Who knows? I think Timberwolves fans would be thrilled about that. But moving on from Karl-Anthony Towns and locking in on Rudy Gobert to be a cheaper but still lucrative extension is most likely what's going to happen. I would agree. Randall can opt in, but if the Timberwolves don't intend to re-sign him long term, it might be his best interest to get moved to a franchise that will. I'm sure that those options will be explored this offseason. Randall is just one of those dudes that he should be on a bad team where he'll make them competitive any night. Think like the Charlotte Hornets or something like that, a Brooklyn Nets, a Portland Trailblazers, a Washington Wizards. You go somewhere like that, he'll get his money, he'll get his stats. He keeps you afloat and selling a couple tickets every night because he keeps you close in games. I don't know if anybody's actually coming to a game to watch Julius Randle, but just doesn't tend to play winning basketball very well. He's taking plays off often, and so I don't know. We'll see with Julius Randle. He will be a really interesting case. Oh, look, it's Tyus Jones. He's back. No, but for real, Fred VanVleet, awesome season he's having this year with the Rockets team, who I think is going to start to fall off, but it doesn't matter right now. Almost 31 has been tremendous this season for the Rockets, and that's despite not shooting very well. I should probably just keep reading the article. While he's not shooting particularly well, his on-court leadership has been huge for a young roster eager to make a playoff run. And yeah, like, his playmaking is still awesome. You can tell the leadership is there. The defensive energy is awesome. Most around the league expect the Rockets to opt out of his contract to re-sign him at a more reasonable number. Because, yeah, they gave him what was it? It was 2 or 3 years at like 40-something million each year, just because they're like, we have the money. We want to go get vets. They brought in him and Dylan Brooks that year just to be like, hey, you guys are going to be the tough vets that kind of groom all the really young studs that we think we have, and they've done a decent job at that so far. So cool, they've done their part. Maybe they get another contract from this team, but Fred's been awesome for this group. He's clearly the leader of them. Naz Reid. Oh, I love me some Naz Reid. Absolutely love Naz Reid. Reid is expected to opt out and explore free agency. He's believed to be the priority of the Timberwolves. Yep. Again, we know that's a big reason they traded Cat, as they wanted to retain him and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Current sixth man of the year is averaging 14 points off the bench while shooting 40% from 3 on high volume. And this is despite just a gross basketball team kind of being around him. Not that they're bad players, it's just a bad configuration of things, and not getting as many minutes as like Rudy Gobert and Julius Randle, when he should probably play more than both of them. So that's just a thing. His ability to put the ball on the floor and create as well. Being an able passer in those situations, like, he just does everything defensively. He's nice. He can play at the 4, the 5. Just such a versatile and fun basketball player. He deserves every cent he gets, and he's literally like a folktown hero here in Minnesota. So hope he's back. Miles Turner, you're a free agent this year? Assuming the Pacers continue their long-running strategy of avoiding luxury taxes, Turner's status is in flux. Yep. The Pacers do tend to do that. Indiana doesn't have a suitable replacement center, so either Turner returns at a slightly lower number, or the team needs to get out of the other players to make room, which feels more likely. Competing executives say the Pacers tested the market for Mathurin, Obi Toppin. Miles Turner never goes anywhere else. Like, he's always just staying in Indiana, so I'd like to think that he's probably going to stick around here. He is a very valuable player to them, both offensively and defensively. He's just a really nice option to have next to Siakam as well, who you've invested in, so I'd like to think he's probably going to stick around. He's averaging 15 points, 1.8 blocks. He's shooting the ball from deep, so I think they're just going to move on from other people off the bench and try to re-sign him. So that's what I think. James Harden, yes, I was waiting for this one. The Clippers could have fallen off with Kawhi missing significant time, but Harden did keep the team on track. Him and Norm Powell and Zubats, with some solid veteran role players around him. The defensive player of the year, maybe dark horse, and Chris Dunn, now that Wemby's gone. Hope you're getting better, Wemby, really do. But yeah, no, great team. It's been really cool to see. James Harden, still not very efficient, and he's struggling in that department, not nearly the player that he was. And you know what? That's what happens. People get older. We don't have to spend much time about it. But what do you do with him going forward? Who's signing him? Because he does just demand a certain style of play. He's going to play his style of basketball wherever he goes. And is he going to go somewhere else? Well, the 35-year-old may not have a long list of suitors. Look at the Clippers to re-sign him for at least 2 additional seasons to time with Leonard's final year. Oh, yeah, no, that's certainly what'll happen then. Yeah, they'll just pay him to do that until Kawhi's gone and they can figure out something else to do with this team. I have a theory that the Clippers are going to be one of those teams that I talk about that just tries to win every single season, or they're always trying to be as good as possible. I always say that the Jazz fall into that, the Heat and the Pacers. Those are kind of the 3 teams that tend to be all about winning, strong culture. It feels like the Clippers are starting to move that way, so curious to see. Kyrie Irving, is this ever going to be a story this year? Yes, he has a $44 million player option. Look, teams don't really have cap space anymore, right? So this would, if he went somewhere else, it'd have to be like a sign and trade or something. But could you imagine, after all this work of Kyrie trying to find a home, he finds Dallas, he likes Dallas, they go to the finals with him, they trade Luka and he goes too. Could you imagine? Oh my gosh, you gotta fire, what's his nuts? I don't even want to say his name. I do remember his name now, but I don't even want to say his name on here, the Mavericks GM. Just get rid of him. Just, what a disaster that would be. But I don't know. We'll see what happens with him and Anthony Davis this season. Are they going to be able to do something? This is still a great basketball team. I read a comment the other day that I've basically said it before on the channel, but I thought it encapsulated it really well. They lost Luka, which lowered their ceiling, but bringing in Anthony Davis raised their floor. That's probably the perfect way to say it. They're still a contending team. They don't have as good a chance without Luka, but with Anthony Davis, they are still incredibly, incredibly gifted, and they could win a championship. Yep, totally agree. Totally agree with that. So how they perform this year probably is an indicator as to what happens with Kyrie, but man, it feels like every person and coach wants off that team at this point after that trade. That was crazy. Oh, and yeah, I probably should have presumed that LeBron would be on here. Shout out Isaiah Collier for making it in this picture. That's really cool. Yep, he's got the $52 million player option, but the Lakers shocked James with a Luka Doncic trade, parting with Anthony Davis. Yep, he was another client to him, blah, 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 blah. Well, the 40-year-old has hinted that retirement has crossed his mind. The current expectation is that he'll stay with the Lakers for another year. I imagine they're going to want to get a full year of LeBron and Luka together. I find it hard to believe he would go somewhere else. Still, if James wanted to go elsewhere, he could relocate him with a sign-in trade, or if he opts in, they can just trade him outright. So I don't know. I just think he's going to play with Luka. That feels like something they wouldn't want to pass up. They'll just be extremely aggressive in the offseason. They still have picks to work with because the Mark Williams trade didn't work out. Maybe they draft somebody this year that can be of help or service to them right away, but they've got some solid role players, and Rui and Reeves is hooping right now. Dorian Finney-Smith. Just got to go get some bigs on the team, man. Just got to go get some bigs, and maybe we'll see. Maybe we'll see. We got some honorable mentions here. Jackson Hayes or Bobby Portis. Man, the Bobby Portis things suck. We'll talk about it in our weekly recap video. Alex Len off the list. Other players to include Trey Mann. Yeah, Trey Mann probably should have been on the list. Trey Jones, yeah, probably as well. Gary Payton, meh. Kevon Looney, meh. Tim Hardaway Jr., still solid. Davion Mitchell, meh. Gary Trent's been a nice player. Potentially could have been on the list. Precious, no. Bruce Brown, we'll just have to see. Chris Boucher, Malcolm Brogdon, yeah. Torian Prince has been awesome this year. Larry Nance, he's always nice. And Steven Adams, another glue guy. Those are some really good names out there. There's some potential to have some names out here, but how many of them actually hit free agency? That's the question, right? How many of these guys will actually hit free agency? But anyway, those are the free agents, y'all. Stay tuned for the comment of the video. All right, y'all. The comment of the video comes from the post-All-Star break NBA Power Rankings. A quick reminder, make sure you guys go watch these deep dives we're doing on some of the prospects out there. These are my favorite videos to watch. I put a lot of time into them and try to make them a little bit funny, a little bit entertaining as well, but also educational. And educational content doesn't tend to perform as well on here because people have short attention spans. So be better. Go learn something. But anyway, comment of the video comes from Hysteric Old Cheese 1028. I don't know how y'all come up with these names or whatever, but he said the Discord is elite. The Discord is elite. Go join it. It's right here in the description. Click it. Go join it. We're talking on there all the time. You didn't think this was going to be an ad, did you? I got you. You're a sucker. Look at you. I got you, but you should go join the Discord. Anyway, we're talking hoops all the time on there. I guarantee you I've got notifications on notifications. Yep, I've got 5 notifications from there just in the last 30 minutes of recording. Anyway, we're talking hoops all the time, and I want you guys to be a part of it. So go join today, and hey, appreciate you guys for commenting. Leave me a comment down below, and maybe you'll be the comment of the video. But anyway, we'll talk to you guys later. Have a wonderful weekend, and thanks for letting me do a later upload because I had a lot of things to do. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk later.